Hello, welcome to this video guide on ApolloBoot Trio and ApolloBoot OMNI. In this video guide, I'm going to show you how to create your own ApolloBoot image step by step. There are four major steps. The first step is preparation. Then the second step is installation. And we have actually two methods there, the turbo install and the slow install. I'm going to cover both. The third is the basic usage. And the fourth step is the tooling. So let's get to it. Let's start with step one, prepare. Okay, so for preparation, of course, you will need a up and running Apollo V4 device. And also you will need at least one CF card of 64 GB or higher capacity to use as the ApolloBoot target. And then depending on the method of installation, you will need an SD card for storing the source files and another SD card for storing source images. Mind that these physical SD cards are only necessary if you choose to install by the slow install method, which uses the V4 as the device to actually install all the OSs on the CF card. The other installation option, turbo install, uses the emulator, and in that case you will not need the additional SD cards. It's sufficient to have only the CF card to flash the image at the end of the process. So, next step in the preparation is that you collect all the images and files you will need to install. Well, first let's go to the brand new Apollo Vampire layer site. This is where you can get the ApolloBoot software, and even if you are a bronze member, you get access to everything from ApolloBoot. At the end, I will give some extra information on the ApolloBoot preload service, which is available for our silver and gold subscribers. Okay, first start with the shop on the Apollo Vampire community. And in the shop you can see the nice collection of every software available for the Apollo Vampire layer subscribers. Let's choose ApolloBoot here, not ApolloBoot, stupid. And ApolloBoot OMNI is the one I'm going to choose here. And okay, we are already subscribed, so yes, we can do an additional donation, which is much appreciated, but for this example, just go ahead now and fill in 0, get now. And we will be taken to the checkout, and there we can check out the basic files from ApolloBoot OMNI. View content, and there you have all the files you need for the download. So as you can see, there's all these downloads going on. So let's wait a few minutes until our downloads are completed and we can continue. Okay, so the downloads are all finished. You should have now 7 files in your download folder. And the next step is to unzip all the .zip files. Mind you, don't unzip the AmiKit file, leave that in the archive as is. So choose to unzip all the other files. Let's do that. Okay, after unarchiving all the zip files, you should now have something like this. And we are almost ready now with the preparation phase, because ApolloBoot already provides you the images for Apollo OS, ROS Vision, Atari, and Mac. So what we need to do is to gather other sources, and AmiKit of course, and we have to gather other sources, mainly the Amiga OS. For the Amiga OS, basically the most important is the requirement of the Amiga OS 3.1 and 3.9 licenses. Basically, the only way to get them at the moment is to have a purchase by Amiga Forever to obtain the Amiga 3.1, including the ROMs. The ROM you can also use for Amiga 3.9. Amiga 3.9 is not available anymore commercially, so you have to look around on internet and see how you can get it. Basically, what you will need is the Amiga OS 3.9 CD. And the same goes for Amiga OS 3.1.4.1, not available anymore. But of course, you can buy the 3.2 latest version by Hyperion, including the update to 3.2.3 through Hyperion Entertainment or one or of their sales sites or partners. And after you have done that, then you can download all these files, and we have to nicely order them in the ApolloBoot OMNI SD card folder structure, so the ApolloBoot install can find them and process them. So it's important that this SD card structure is maintained. As you can see, it's quite straightforward. Place here, place here, place here. So let's start with AmiKit. It was already provided here, so we can put it right there. Then we have Amiga OS. We come to that later. The cores are already there. The guide is there. Here we can place additional files for Eyebrows and Roadshow. Kickstart's already there. macOS already there. Some personal files you can store in the personal. They are synced with the ApolloBoot environment. Very important here in the configuration files for the emulator that I'm going to use in step 2. And maybe if you are updating from an older version of ApolloBoot, you can place the update file here. For now, let's start with collecting the source files in the right folders. So AmiKit I already placed here in the AmiKit folder. For the Amiga OS, I'm going to open a second window of my system, and I can show you which files are needed. So for Amiga OS 3.1, you will need to download it from the Cloanto site, the ADF files and the ROM file, and they should look like this. So there are like 6 ADF files and 1 ROM file. Please copy them over at the right spot in the SD card folder structure. So we have AmiKit finished. I'm going to collapse it. 3.1 finished. Then we go to 3.9. You can see the Boeingbags are already there. And if we look at 3.9, you will see that you need the copy of the CD-ROM, so the ISO file, and you will need the ROM file. Those two I have to copy into the AOS 3.9 folder. So it should look like this: the ISO file, the 3 Boeingbags that were already provided, and the ROM file. Okay, let's move over to the oldest one, the Amiga OS 1.3.3. Again, this is not commercially available, so you have to gather the files somewhere. But if you find them, they should look something like this. Where is it? 1.3.3. Oh, it's not here. I'm going to look for it at the other place. Yeah. Okay, it should look like this: 2 ADF files and a Kickstart file. And those are to be placed also in the right folder. Okay, looks like this. So I can collapse this one. This one leaves us Amiga OS 3.1.4.1. Also no commercial site available anymore. But if you can find them, they should look like this: a zip file for the 3.1.4 base, and you have to have the A1200 version, and the 3.1.4.1 update file. Both have to be copied into the OS 3.1.4.1 folder, like this. Okay, that leaves us with the Amiga OS 3.2. That would be downloadable from the Hyperion or Hyperion reseller, and that should look like this. a one-on-one copy of the Amiga OS physical CD, and it has to be the exact name Amiga OS 3.2 CD.ISO, and it has to be really captured correctly, so no 8+3 Joliet format, a real one-on-one CD copy, and the latest update 3.2.3 archive file. Both, again, copied into the right folder. Okay, almost there. Check here, the cores are there, collapse guide is there. Install. As said, if you have original license files for iBrowse, Roadshow, or MUI, you can put them here. Let me check if I have them here. Okay, iBrowse keys, MUI key, Roadshow key. Roadshow has to be the latest 1.15, so not the 1.14, 1.15, and only the original archive. It's really worth the money, so please buy the original. Same goes for iBrowse and MUI. Please help support these Amiga developers. They earn it. And copy all these files to the install. Okay, we can collapse that also. Kickstarts. You can provide additional kickstarts here, but if you're going to install ApolloBoot OMNI or Trio, then the Kickstart ROMs will be extracted from Coffin automatically. So basically, don't mind this. It just collapse it. It's all right. macOS. Here you can choose to copy the additional macOS hard files, and I like them a lot. So please do, even if you don't have any experience with macOS Classic, it's really fun. And just copy the files over. So it's the Mac Office and Mac Games. They have to move over to this folder. Okay, to this folder. Yeah, right. So you have 3 hard files here, and you can choose when you start macOS which you want to do. Do some nice apps like Photoshop or play some nice games. There are very lots of nice games on macOS available. Okay, personal, you can put some personal stuff here. You can do that also later, so I won't mind that for now. And these are the configuration files for the emulator. So we are about to move over to step 2, and I'm going to tell you more how to use the emulator in the turbo install. And after the turbo install, I will also show how to do the slow install method. Okay, let's move over to step 2. So now that we have finished the preparations, we can do the real installation stuff. And we can have 2 ways of installing: turbo install and slow install. We're going to start with the turbo install, and probably the best way if you want to do a smooth and quick installation of ApolloBoot. The reason for using the turbo install on an emulator is that the whole footprint is 60 gigabytes plus on OS files and other data, and it really is a strenuous job to get it all into the image. And you can imagine that running that on the slow install native on an Apollo V4, even if the V4 is really a fast Amiga, it still takes a long time. So the turbo install you can actually do within a few hours for all operating systems. On the slow install, you have to reckon that you are busy for a day or 2. Okay, so turbo install, it uses the emulator on Linux and Macintosh. It is the emulator FS UAE, and on the Windows OS it's Win UAE. Both work. I have configuration files included in the UAE folder. Please use this configuration because they are quite tricky. If something is not okay, then probably installation will fail. For the FSUA, I'm going to copy the configuration file to the configuration folder of the emulator. And then when I start the emulator, I should have the ApolloBoot entry here. Now let's see how the configuration is done. It's an A4000. It has, if you click on the memory side, some basic 2 and 8 megabytes of chip and fast ROM, and some additional ROMs to make all the process go smoothly. Then we have a graphics card and network card. Those are not enabled by ApolloBoot OMNI, so you can just discard them. And you can see here that we use the error-corrected 86040. Then if we go to the hard drives folder, you can see you have to do some selection here of the basic image file. So we click here on Browse for File. We go to our download folder, and there we click on the unzipped version of the ApolloBoot OMNI CF card image. And then we also need to connect the SD card folder, and then you click on the folder icon, and again in your download choose the ApolloBoot OMNI SD card and then choose the SD card folder. Make sure you choose the SD card folder because it's important that here the name SD card is there, else the installation will fail. Okay, then we have to choose the ROM because we want to use the Apollo ROM, but it's a special version of the Apollo ROM for UAE. So go to the download section, go to the Kickstart folder, and there's a ROM called ApolloROM.UAE. Choose this one, please, and it should work all right. So leave the rest of the settings untouched. We can start the virtual Amiga session now. I'm choosing here to do it full screen. And if everything is all right, then you would get into the pre-flight check. The pre-flight check screen is really a dashboard screen in which you can see the status of your installation. This is only provided when you run this on the emulator, so in the turbo install, and it gives you a nice overview on where you stand. So let's go one-on-one, and we can install all the operating system, and you can see that it's really not that difficult. What you can see here is that all the operating systems need to be installed, and that the archives and the personal are already prepared, but they are filled by content of, for example, ApolloOS and Coffin OS automatically. Here you will see in the second part the UE source image mount. As you can see, I have no image mounts yet. So the OSs that are installed from an image are ApolloOS, Coffin, and Aros Vision. And we also have the Atari OS, but that has a different installation because we do that on a separate SD card. Here you can see the status of the files in the SD card folder, and you can see here that the pre-flight check sees that I have AmiKit 133, 131, 39, 3141, and 32 Amiga OS ready in the folder. So that would mean that I could start right now with installing these operating systems. But I want to start at the top, so I'm going to leave the emulator for now, go back to the launch screen of the emulator, and click here on Attach an Image, because we want now to attach the ApolloBoot ApolloOS image. Go back to the download, and if everything is alright, you have there the file called ApolloBoot ApolloOS release 9.5.image, not the zip file, but the image file, so the unzipped file. Select it, and then we choose Start. And one thing you can see now that in the pre-flight check, it says here now it finds ApolloOS 1 and ApolloOS 2, so the two partitions of ApolloOS. That's good. So now we continue to the main screen. The main screen also you can see here all the operating systems that are possibly installed, and they are grayed out now, meaning that they are not installed yet. Okay, very easy to install. Click on ApolloOS because that's the image we have connected now. And once clicked, it will start the installation, and we'll have to be patient for like 15 to 20 minutes for the whole installation of ApolloOS to complete. So 3 beeps means that the installation is finished. We press enter to return to the ApolloBoot pre-flight check, and there you can see that ApolloOS and the programs partitions are now stating OS installed. Let's return to the main menu, and then before we can click on Coffin, we have to exit the emulator to switch the image and we can now switch the image to Coffin. Coffin is not available from ApolloBoot. Of course, you have to be really creative to find it, and if you find it, you can download it, and then you will be able to connect it. It's the release called Coffin R64 32GB.emg. Start. Again, you will see that the pre-flight check recognizes that you have the Coffin image connected. Please check that if all three partitions are there, so then you know that the installation will go okay. Again, installation starts just by clicking Coffin. Coffin is a little bit larger, and it also uses Coffin to extract the huge archives of games and demos of Coffin, and will place them in the archives partition, so you can use the archive from every operating system in ApolloBoot. So we're going to leave this installation for a while and get back after like maybe an hour or so to see if the installation is okay. Alright, so 3 beeps again, meaning finishing the Coffin installation, and the pre-flight check shows the Coffin indeed installed correctly. So let's now move on to AmiKit. AmiKit is actually extracted from one of the folders on the SD card which was connected, so we don't have to leave the emulator. We can go straight on, clicking to AmiKit XA to start the installation. It will ask which base operating system we want to use. I would prefer AOS 3.2, assuming of course that you have the license and the files are there on the SD card folder. And then it will ask you if you want to do a verbose or a quiet extraction. This is because the extraction sometimes fails for no obvious reasons, and with verbose you can have more control. But normally I say 59% or something, or 95% or something, you can choose quiet. I will do quiet now because well, the last installations for me all went very well. AmiKit installation is actually a two-part installation. This first part, it will copy all the AmiKit files and the Amiga OS 3.2 files into the appropriate directories. This will take about half an hour or so, and after that, when we for the first time start AmiKit, it will do the real installation of AmiKit, and after that you can enjoy the nice AmiKit 11.3 and update to 11.5 provided by Jan from AmiKit. Thank you so much. So let's wait until this AmiKit has finished. Okay, 3 beeps again, meaning AmiKit is finished. And now we will do the next one, which is Amiga OS 133. And as the whole installation of 133, 31, 39, 3141 and 32 are basically the same, we're going to do with this one in fast forward mode. Okay, so now Amiga OSs are all installed. Then there is a special version of the Amiga OS 3.2 special edition, which is an additional theme pack and tooling pack provided by 8080. You can, for a small amount of money, get the files, and it's really a nice job. Basically, two discs you can download. One is the basic 3.2 SE, which is free, and the other one you can obtain with some little donation. So please check it out. If you do so, you have to put the files into the 3.2 directory. So in this directory, you have to put the files from SE32, Where are they? They are here. So these are the files. Copy them and just put them right in next to the existing other files of Amiga OS 3.2. And then we can go back to our emulator and we can choose 3.2 SE. Oh, he says it's not found. So I have made a mistake, which is obviously something that can happen. Let me see. Oh yeah, the naming is not good. Something happened with the file name here. I'm sorry. Okay, try again. This is interesting because the previous installation was aborted. I get now the option to resume or restart. I'd like a restart, so do a fresh install. And now you can see that it's actually found the archives and we'll continue with the installation. So let's wait until this is finished. All right, that was the 32SE installation. Then we're almost there. You see a lot of green. The next one is ROS Vision. Made by Olaf. It was very nice, and it's going to install from an image. So I have to go back, leaving the emulator, and go to the Launchpad, and there we can select the ROS Vision.image file, which is provided from the ApolloBoot downloads. Click on Open. Restart the emulator. And you can see here again that it recognizes as the ROS Vision image. And from here, we can just click on ROS Vision and wait for the installation to complete. The ROS Vision is actually an installation which has three options when you start it. Magellan, Scalos and Wanderer, the type of workbench. So it really gives you a nice overview of the current state of affairs on the basic ROS environment that is developed still for several platforms, including the 68K. And Olaf is really making a hell of a job to collect a real large operating system with all kinds of nice tools included by default. Really worthwhile to check out. So let's wait until this is finished. Okay, this was ROS Vision, and then we only have one left: macOS. macOS actually a operating system, macOS Classic, that ran on the same 68K as Amiga and Atari, and therefore it makes sense to have macOS also here in the collection, because with the nice shapeshifter tool, which does only some basic translation between the Apollo v4 hardware and the macOS Classic operating system to make it all work. And as you will see if you try it out, it's a really fast macOS Classic environment, and it gives you a lot of nice applications and games to play around it. So definitely recommend it. You can see it installs here the hard files that it's found, and it's already finished. This is how quick it goes. Okay. This means now that we have finished our turbo install. We see green all over the board, and we see here also in the main menu all the operating systems in white. So all operating systems are installed. So the final step is to get the image on the CF card so that we can actually enjoy it on our Apollo v4. So we close the emulator, then we start a program called Balena Etcher, which is available for free and is very much recommended. And what you do is you just connect an CF card reader to your system, PC, Mac, and then you can click in your CF card. You choose the image. You ignore the error that it gives when you insert the CF card. because probably the CF card contains some data that your Mac or PC doesn't recognize. No problem. Choose flash from file. Then we go to the place where the image is, and the image here you can see today it has just been finished. And you can check that it's a 64 gigabyte image. That's the one to flash. It says again that it doesn't recognize what you want to flash. That's understandable because Amiga's from a long time ago and the file systems partition scheme are not recognized. Okay, you can click which target. Make sure you click the right one. It's easily to mistake, and then you can format your external hard drive or something. We don't want that. Okay, click on the CF card, and then we click again for confirmation, password. Then it will start flashing, and we will fast forward this for a second until it's finished. And also, please don't forget to wait for the verify to complete. Okay, so that's finished. And now we can take out the CF card, and we should be ready for the next step to boot this on the Apollo v4. But first, I'm going to do a second round of the installation video, but now for slow install. So please feel free to skip that part completely if you just want to use the turbo install. And for those who want to do the real tough stuff on the Apollo v4 native install, please stay here and I will show you how to do the slow install. So for the slow install, it's really easy on the PC or Macintosh side, because the only thing we have to do now is to flash the empty image of ApolloBoot OMNI to the CF card, so we can boot it on the V4. And then we have to prepare one SD card to contain all the files of the SD card. So we can do the Amiga OS installations, for example. And we will need another SD card. Let's take one to flash the different images of Apollo OS, Coffin, ROS Vision. And if you want to, then please take another SD card to flash the Atari image. So you can boot the Atari image whenever you want to. It's on a separate SD card. And that will stay on that SD card, while the SD card for the images of Apollo OS, Coffin, and ROS Vision is only for the installation needed. So let's see how this works. Again, Berliner Etcher, you put in the CF card into the reader. You click on the zipped version, in my case now, of the image, because this is the one we just installed with turbo install complete with everything. So we want to leave that as is. This is the empty one downloaded from the Apollo Vampire layer. And we go to Berliner Etcher, and Berliner Etcher accepts a zip file as a source, so it's no problem there. ApolloBoot OMNI R9.2 CF card image.zip. So the empty zip card, the empty CF card as a zip file, we flash directly to the CF because we want to do the slow install on the Apollo v4 itself. So again, let's wait until this is finished, including the verify. Please be patient, and then I will get back to you in a moment. Okay, so after flashing the empty ApolloBoot OMNI image.zip file to the CF card, we now have to copy the SD card folder contents to a FAT32 formatted SD card, so we can use that to install the Amiga operating systems from on the V4. So just make sure it's FAT32 formatted and insert it into your micro SD card reader on your PC or Mac. And then we have to make sure to copy the content of the SD card folder we prepared with all the Amiga OS files in the preparation phase to this SD card. So make sure you open the root of the SD card folder and you copy all these folders nicely until the root of your physical SD. And once that's finished, we can use that SD card to do the installation of the Amiga OS and AmiKit to the V4. And then, of course, we have Apollo OS, Coffin, and Aros Vision. And for the ones that like the Atari OS for a second SD card, we have to flash it using the same software, Berliner Etcher. So after the SD card folder copy is finished, which will take only a minute from now, so let's wait. Okay, so that's finished. So let's eject the SD card properly, and we can put it beside the CF card to be used on the V4 later. And then finally, we have the SD card we can use to flash the images we want to install, starting with Apollo OS, and after that Coffin, and after that Aros Vision. You can use the same SD card over and over because you can move the SD card over to the V4, do the installation, and go back to your PC and flash the next image. You do this with Berliner Etcher. So the same software again, choose flash file, and then we're going to start with Apollo OS. So make sure that you click on the file. You can click the zip file because, again, Berliner Etcher knows how to handle this, and then you can flash it to the SD card. Okay, so for this video, I'm going to assume you know how to do this also for the Coffin and for the Aros Vision image. It's really the same procedure. So this would wrap up the slow install part for the PC side. Now we're going to move over to the slow install part on the actual Apollo V4. So please move over. So slow install on the Apollo V4 means we're going to install on the CF card all the operating systems from the SD cards which we flashed with Apollo OS, Coffin, and Aros Vision, the images, and we have another SD card which contained the OS files for the Amiga OS and AmiKit. And if you want to, you can have also the dedicated SD card for the Atari OS. So CF card, we're going to insert that first on the Apollo V4. Then let's start with Apollo OS, the same as with the turbo install. So I get the SD card where I flash the ApolloBoot Apollo OS R9.2 image file onto. I put that into the SD card and I switch on my Apollo V4. So basically the whole routine is the same as turbo install. It's only happening on the Apollo V4 native, and it will take much more time. As you can see here, it's my new Apollo boot logo, which I flashed by using the new Apollo logo tool made by Apollo team member Tim. And it's available at Apollo Vampire Layer. Okay, so this is the Apollo boot main menu. It's basically the same as turbo install. You can see here that all the operating systems are grayed out, meaning they have to be installed. The only difference is in if any operating system is installed, it's white, and then if you click it, it will really start it instead of installing it. If you want to reinstall any operating system that's already installed, just use Tools and then Clear OS Partition, and you can clear any OS partition, and after that you can just click in the main menu for reinstall. So you can really do all the maintenance from this menu. Let's start with the Apollo OS. I click on Apollo OS, I click on Start. It will ask me which slot I'm using. For 99% of the users, this will be the default slot on the backside, but I'm using the secondary slot, which is an extension available from the Apollo shop, which also uses nice full-size SD cards like this, which are a bit more handy to handle. So in my case, I click slot 1. You can see it says that it found everything and it's starting to install. So same as with the turbo install, we have to wait, only this time Apollo OS will take about 30 minutes. And it takes not 30 minutes, but it takes over 4 hours. So I'm going to press the fast forward button and get back to you in a second. Okay, so now Apollo OS is installed, and the next step I will demonstrate the installation of Amiga OS. Let's just take one, Amiga OS 133, my favorite. And basically all the other installations are the same as in Turbo Install. So installing Coffin and Aros Vision will mean you have to put in the SD card with the image containing Coffin or Aros Vision, and then do the install. And for all the Amiga OSs, including AmiKit, you will need the SD card with the files. Finally, for the Mac OS, you don't need any SD card, you need the SD card with the files if you want to install the additional hard files. Use that one. And for the Atari OS, you have the dedicated SD card. If you want to, it's optional. So let's insert the OS files, SD card, and choose my favorite Amiga OS 133. And as you can see, it finds everything and does the same kind of install as on the Turbo install. As you can see with the Amiga OSs, they're actually quite lightweighted installs, so they don't take much time. The Amiga OS 133 even can install just real time here. It's only taking a few minutes. This means that installing or reinstalling an Amiga OS on the ApolloBoot image is really something you can do using slow install. It's only the large operating systems, mainly Coffin and Aros Vision, and also Apollo OS, that will take a benefit of installing with the turbo install on the emulator. Okay, as you can see, the Amiga OS 133 is already installed. And if you look at the main menu, you can see it's turned white. So it's signaled it's now finished. So we complete this for all the operating systems, and then we move over to step 3, the use of ApolloBoot. So now we have all operating systems installed using turbo install or slow install or both. We can do the fun part on ApolloBoot. Before I'm going to start all the operating systems, I'm going to show you the tools. The file manager is the main tool there. It's the Dopus file manager, which gives you easy access to the ApolloBoot files, the archives and the personal drives, the SD card, to do all kind of maintenance. But if you press the right mouse button, you can scroll to all the different OS partitions and also do direct access to those drives and do maintenance. One nice thing is also that when you start the file manager, the excellent Apollo Explorer is started, meaning that if I'm going to start it on my PC or Mac side, I'm going to be able to easily transfer files. Let's do a photograph of me. Also always interesting. There it is. And it's an easy way just to move files between your PC, Mac, and your V4. So let's leave the file manager, go back to the main menu to show the rest of the tools available in ApolloBoot, which are a few configuration tools. Setting the Harddisk mode. I think better leave it by default. That would be fine. It's on mode 2, so it's a very fast mode, but not the fastest mode. And it's safe. The network stack, you can choose between Miami DX or Roadshow, and Roadshow will pick up your license for the full version if it is available during the install. But you can change it also later here. Miami DX is a full free version. The date and time, we'll set the date and time and also get to choose between the real-time clock and the network synchronization. Update Apollo core is what it says. It's updating for the Apollo core. And it's important that you have a core higher than 11350. And I'm going to put in the SD card with the files to show you that there are some cores made available on the SD card, which you can use, but you can also go to preferably the official Apollo official website, and get your latest release over there. So to finish off the tools section, we have the update ApolloBoot, which is for existing ApolloBoot users. I will make a separate video about that. Update the personal and backup personal to either get the personal folder content from your SD card to the personal drive on your V4, and with backup personal you do the other way around. It has a built-in check for newer files only, so you will only do a delta copy, and it's ideal for keeping in sync the SD card personal folder with your personal drive. System info is to show off your speed to your friends. The display settings, I won't bother to go there. The default settings are quite okay for ApolloBoot. And if you want specific game settings for the display, we have the excellent Apollo WHD tool on ApolloOS and AmigaOS is available to set per game the right settings for your display. Finally, you have the clear OS partition and clear ApolloBoot. Clear ApolloBoot will clear everything. Clear OS partition will clear one specific OS. This is very useful if you want to do a reinstall on your Apollo V4 of one specific OS. And as said before, the Amiga OSs are really installable in just a few minutes, so you can do this on the V4 natively. So let's go to the fun part, starting operating systems. And if you start an operating system, you have to just click on it and it will start it, and it will look exactly the same as a regular install of this operating system on a dedicated CF card. The only difference is, as you can see, you have an archives and a personal drawer, which are there on each operating system, meaning that you have access to a big archive of demos and games that were retracted from the Coffin image and made available for all operating systems to enjoy, and the personal, which contains the personal folders we just discussed. So those two are extra. Also extra is the boot icon here, which gives you direct access to the ApolloBoot menu to switch to other operating systems. And finally, I would like to show you how the SD cards work. We are now on ApolloOS. ApolloOS has the usage of the Apollo ROM, same as ROS Vision, and those have support for auto mount of the SD card. So just click in the SD card, it will mount it, and I just remove it. I don't have to do anything, it's automated. So let's switch to another operating system, take Coffin, and as you can see, it will map the corresponding Kickstart ROM for each operating system. ApolloBoot takes care of this automatically, so you always have the right combination, and it's really without powering off or switching any CF cards. Well, as you can see, it's quite fast also, so it's really usable in an everyday situation. And again, access from Coffin to archives and personal drawer here, and the same ApolloBoot menu here. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Let's choose AmigaOS 3.1, just for an example. And again, switching the Kickstart ROM automatically for you, booting the AmigaOS 3.1, and it will look very similar, recognizable to you, and it has the same features. What's different though, because it's an Amiga OS, also the same goes for Coffin, it has an SD card icon to make sure that you can mount and unmount SD card safely. So to mount an SD card, first insert it, then nothing will happen, but if you click the SD card icon, it will mount the SD card. If you click the SD card icon again, it will say watch closely the HD LED to make sure there's no activity, and when there's no activity you can remove the SD card safely. So this is a nice feature to use the SD card on any Amiga OS. Okay, let's do a switch to AmigaOS 3.2.3, because I know a lot of you want to use the latest and greatest on the Amiga OS side. I think the combination of Apollo, Coffin, and AmigaOS 3.2.3 is very nice. This is why I also have an ApolloBoot edition called ApolloBoot Trio, which is exactly the same as OMNI, but only contains those three operating systems. Also, what you can see is that every operating system has the nice iGame for access to the archives that are over here in a nice GUI, so you can really very easily choose any game or demo you want to start. Okay, so let's show RS Vision. RS Vision made by Olaf. When I start, I get to choose which workbench I want to use. I choose Wanderer, it's one of my favorites. It's very clean, very easy, and this is based on the basic AROS distribution made from the AROS source. So it's the same source as where ApolloOS comes from, but it's collected by Olaf and made a very nice, complete operating system. Never mind these errors I have here. It's just me fooling around a bit with RS Vision. And if everything goes okay, then I will have the nice Wanderer desktop. And again, Archives Personal and the ApolloBoot icon. Okay, let's do a switch to AmiKit, because AmiKit has a special instruction for the first time. If I'm going to start, I have to click and hold both mouse buttons to make sure that I disable the ROM module updates, because else it will not boot. This is only for the first time boot, so don't worry. And on the first time boot, it will start the AmiKit setup, which I'm going to show you and fast forward through it so you can see it actually works nicely on the Apollo v4. I support it fully. I have the backup behind me of Jan from AmiKit, and he also made very kindly the AmiKit 11.3 with update to 11.5 freely available for all ApolloBoot users. So again, many thanks Jan for that. And I'm also looking with Jan to support in the future updating to the AmiKit 12.8. And we will notify you when this is happening. So let's fast forward through the installation of AmiKit. I will be back to you in a second. So this actually looks like a nice AmiKit full install 11.3. And the nice thing about AmiKit is that it includes the live update feature, which is really very easy to use and will be able to keep you up to date automatically. So until this moment, we have support to 11.5, which I'm going to install now. Give me 1 second. Okay, so after updating, we really have AmiKit 11.5 running on the Apollo v4. What I want to show you also is from every operating system, there's a tool available called Cross-Mount, which is a easy way to get access to the drives of the other operating systems to transfer files between the operating systems. So for example, if I wanted to use the ApolloFlash tool from ApolloOS, the new ApolloFlash map tool, the GUI, then I can just open the drive and start it here right away. So it's an easy way to cross-use applications or data between operating systems. Mind that it's not always possible to do this because not every application is compatible with each operating system, but still a nice way to hop around between the different operating systems. Okay, so let's do something different. Mac operating system, the Mac OS Classic. I don't know if any one of you had a Mac OS Classic device in the past. I did, actually my father had, and I enjoyed it very much. So up to Mac OS 8.1 is compatible with the 68K and can run at native or higher speed. It's really fast on your Apollo v4. You see the main menu. You can choose between the basic Mac OS, the Mac OS Office, or the Mac OS with games. And it really transfers your Apollo v4 device in a very fast Apple Classic device. And you can run stuff like Photoshop and everything without any problems, even using the floating point unit for nice filters and everything. And you see it's running really okay. It's really nice. Okay, to leave it, just choose shutdown, and it will bring you back to the macOS menu where you can start the games, a hard file, or you can choose the exchange part. The exchange part will be necessary if you want to exchange files between the V4 and the macOS. So for example, if I want to exchange Office files, pictures and everything, I click on exchange, it will open up the macOS on the left side, it will open up the Dopus file manager on the right side, and then you can choose to just transfer files from one side to the other. All made available by ApolloBoot. So let's get back straight away to ApolloBoot, because I want to do the last part of the demonstration of the use of ApolloBoot, that is the TinyLauncher. And the TinyLauncher is basically what it says, a very lightweighted boot, which almost directly from Amiga ROM brings you to the WHD load start of any games in the archive or any demo in the archive. And the reason why this is important is because you don't have all the baggage and luggage of the complete operating system running. If you look at the games, all is there. You can use the shift key and then a letter to straight away go to the S for Speedball, because that is the nicest game. No, it's not it's my personal favorite, but of course you can choose whatever you want. Just use the enter key and it will boot the game or the demo for you. And it's a really a good way to have a game party with lots of friends to enjoy. And as you can see, it's really fast. You can use page up, page down, or the help key to exit. And when you exit the TinyLauncher itself, it will bring you back to the ApolloBoot operating system you were launching TinyLauncher from. So in my case, I believe I will get back to the main menu. Yeah, I'm back to the main menu. So this leaves me with the bonus Atari OS. You have to have the Atari OS flashed dedicated on an SD card, and then you have to insert it. And if you dare, if you really are up to it, you can click the Atari OS, and then it will bring you to the excellent environment made by Olivier Landemar. And it's really everything there with the NVDI, Mint, AES, and it's a whole different world. It's very much worth exploring. There's also a specific Atari channel on the Apollo Discord. And as you can see, it's a complete, let's see the configuration later. Complete environment for the Apollo V4. Much work in progress, but it's really every week something new. So I encourage you to really spend some time with it. Okay, so to leave Atari OS, you have to power switch, and then it will bring you automatically back to the ApolloBoot menu. And this concludes almost, because for the fans I have one to show which I really like myself. That's the Amiga OS 133, and then we're really finished with the use of ApolloBoot. The Amiga OS 133 is very special because it doesn't have any Harddisk support natively. So we did have to do a lot of trickery to make support fully for the V4 using the fast IDE and everything. And you see it's nicely aligned also. In my capture card, it's stretched, but on your monitor, it will be in the right 4:3 display mode. It is, as you can recognize, I hope, the real classic workbench. I put some nice tools here called classics, and if you want to use one of the classics, just click on it And you can do the boring demo, for example, to really go back in time. Yeah, I forgot you had to remove the screen. I'm very sorry. This is very stupid. Okay. So a short last step for showing some of the tools that are available in all of the OSs. And then it's a wrap up for this ApolloBoot video. So for example, if I start Apollo OS and can open the tools drawer, and we'll find a set of tools there that are specific for the Apollo v4. These will be available, all the specific Apollo v4 tools on all the operating systems. One I like to highlight is the Apollo Explorer. It's a nice tool to do the file exchange between your PC or Mac and the Apollo v4, but also the Apollo WHD set. It's a simple way to click on the game you want to play and do a real fine-tune settings of all the settings for Apollo control you want to have for this specific game. So you don't need to have any Apollo control batch files, or you don't have to use the joypad every time. You can set it here in Apollo WHD set, and it will remember it, storing it in the tool types of the icon, and it will be always the perfect way in display and speed settings. Also, I want to mention the new Apollo Flash map, which I already showed a little bit. It's a nice and easy way to flash cores or to flash ROMs or to map a ROM with a GUI tool. We also have Apollo Max, which you can use to really reset the settings of your CF card to be able to access the maximum size. So if I choose now to set to the maximum size, to press enter once, it will automatically make the whole size available. So if I'm looking now at my CF card and I will say add entry, you can see there's a whole bunch of free space now, which you can use to add additional partitions. Mind you, you can't expand existing partitions without deleting all the data. It's not possible. Don't ask me that, it's not possible. What you can do, however, is remove or resize DH12, it's the personal drive, and then you can restore your personal data that you have backed up to your SD card using the update personal feature from ApolloBoot. So that's something you can do and something very usable. Okay, then we have excellent Apollo monitor to monitor the CPU performance, and last but not least, we have the Apollo floppy, which is the excellent tool from Van, our team member, which can actually load an ADF or two ADFs in the DF0 and DF1. This is available only on the standalone, I have to say, and then you can really boot from those floppies and use it very natively like a physical floppy. Okay, so this is a wrap-up of the complete ApolloBoot quick, well, not quick, but video guide. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's any questions or you want to share feedback, please use the Apollo Discord server and then the hashtag ApolloBoot channel. Thank you so much for supporting Apollo Vampire Layer. Oh, there's one thing I want to mention before you turn off. There is, for those who find the whole ApolloBoot installation procedure quite strenuous, an ApolloBoot preload service. It's very simple. If you are a silver or a gold subscriber member, then you can give me a personal message. I will query you for all the licenses you will need, and then the ApolloBoot OMNI image will be fully prepared for you, and then you don't have to do the turbo or slow install yourself. Okay, thank you again for supporting Apollo Vampire Layer. I hope you enjoy ApolloBoot, and see you later.